maybe just say a few words about the topic for today, and
Sure.
it's science-business linkages, but the the countries that we are working with are all very keen and all understand the potential of and also the challenges of enabling and promoting science business linkages. And it's a very complex topic, and it's also one that we should see in the broader context of how countries develop, how you overcome the middle income trap, and especially in view of digitization and the opportunities for service trade in particular, and innovation and service trade that opens, and that I think we often overlook in our analysis and in our understanding of innovation. Uh, this has been the main research interest of Professor Vonortas, and that's why it's an honor. It's an honor to have him here. So, Professor Vonortas, first we'll hand over to you, and then I will have a few questions and comments, and then for most of the program, starting in about maybe 20-25 minutes, we will welcome questions and comments, and especially specific questions about projects that you are working on, to share and to ask for Professor Vonortas' comments and advice and experience. So, Professor Vonortas, over to you.
Thank you, Anders, very much. I will go into the sharing. I will try to put this. Let me see now. If I can show. Do you see my screen right now?
Yes.
You see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, wherever you are. I am sorry for this little technical problems here. I am out of my base. I am in the Netherlands right now, and I carry a small laptop with me. I think I got this invitation from Anders because of this book that we published a couple of years ago, and I will show you where you can find it actually free of charge now in a moment. And I thought, because of about 10 years ago, I had visited the region for quite a while, actually, for 2-3 weeks. Together with the World Bank, and I was going to the South Caucasus, the countries of the South Caucasus, going around interviewing entrepreneurs and seeing what were the challenges that they're facing. So we thought for me to start this discussion by giving you a background that built into this book, to see that the science entrepreneurship linkages do not live on their own, but they're part of a context. There is a context in which these linkages operate, and in order to operate well, they need to be cognizant of the context in which they are. So this is if I can move it. Yeah, this is the book that we are talking about. It was published by Oxford University Press, and as you see here, the editors of this book were all well-known people. Actually, all of them are editors of academic journals, of various academic journals, all of them. John Dong Lee is advisor to the Korean president. Kun Lee was ex-president of Schumpeter Society, also advisor to the Korean president. Meissner is at the Higher School of Economics. Slavo Radoshevich is, of course, the utmost expert on Eastern in economies of transition, Eastern Europe. And myself. So the book you can download free of charge from this site. It's Oxford University Press. right? The full text everybody can see, and now I can tell you why but this thing was created. It of course everybody knows that long-term growth has been associated directly with innovation and capabilities, right? Technological advancement and innovation seem to be the major factors that have underlined long-term growth, right? There was also some understanding that emerging economies, and several of them, have problems in moving from this middle level of income into higher level of income. So, in other words, this is the middle income trap, right? That the World Bank has developed the last few years. The idea is very simple. A lot of countries place effort to go from the low level to the middle, and a lot of them succeed. Actually, they succeed in sweating, let's say, the sweating stage. But then they want to move once more into the higher stage, and there only few of them succeed. So the idea, the question is why? And several years ago, actually, John Dong Lee, in a conference, presented a paper where the rest of us were present, and it had a very intriguing idea of resource concentration in the first stage of development, and then the need to transfer to change attention into the sort of what he called the design stage. And in that, transferring out of people many countries face difficulties. So we decided to collect some of the better known people, and out of an effort, took several years actually, 5 international workshops, one in presence altogether in Brazil, and several others online later with the pandemic. And in 2021, this book was published. So the idea is here, as you see in this slide, we have 2 general approaches to technological advancement. Is the classic economics, what some people call neoclassical or mainstream or whatever, which provides emphasis into incentives and institutions. Incentives for individual actors, right, and institutions. And this the other side, the Schumpeterian side, that gives more attention into history, culture, and very important for us here, capabilities and systems. So looking at the whole system, taking a systemic look, and looking at the capabilities that are developed in this system. In our view, both have something to contribute to this discussion. Both mainstream econ and Schumpeterian econ have very good ideas. So this is how we built the book. Several chapters in each of these themes. The theme 1 looks at the relationship between capabilities and growth. We're using some of these more modern perspectives that have developed around the idea of the middle income trap. This trap I was talking about, the difficulty of countries to move to the forefront, technological frontier, right? Theme number 2 went actually more micro and looked at sectors and particular companies with examples. 2 major examples. I will talk about one of those examples actually, which is in Latin America, where I spend a lot of time these days. Particularly Brazil, who is exactly at that stage of the middle income, and they try to escape that trap, right? In section 3, the chapters are looking at green green growth, right? Very interesting work, but also green growth, sustainability, and socioeconomics and some other socioeconomic determinants such as equity and participation into this. And theme number 4, at the fourth stage, we looked at how we can, the chapters look at how we can use these frameworks in understanding experiments in policy. So there is a very good chapter by Kuznetsov on experimentation in policy, but also a very good chapter on global value chains, and a chapter on large state programs, public programs. So this is, I don't want to bore you with this, but this is the kinds of, you see, 5 different chapters and different people, the authors on this. You will recognize many of them. They are really big in the literature. And the number 7 there is the example that I will use in a moment, a specific example. This is the third section of the book, with very well known, you see, chapter 12 on inclusive structural change. This is a very interesting sort of idea by Maria Savona, who is one of the editors of Research Policy, right? In promoting structural change, as mainstream economics has always discussed, but with attention to inclusivity. Which is very modern, these days everybody keeps talking about, right? For example, in the United States, the current director of the National Science Foundation talks about the missing millions. In other words, our society is missing many millions of people who could contribute, and they are kept outside, right? Outside the system. You see the last section then with the policy chapters on particular issues, on these 3 particular issues that I was mentioning. One about large-scale programs, and those programs are China. Professor Gao from Tsinghua University. The second on global value change, which is very interesting. Carlo is actually one of the most important people talking about the current reorganization of international investment and the chances, the opportunities for developing countries, right, to engage. And then the chapter by Kuznetsov that I was talking about experimentation. In other words, innovation policies, if I may put it this way. So what are the key findings out of this, right? There's several chapters doing different things. One major key finding here is that this transition that I was talking about, this transition from the middle income to the frontiers, is very, very serious, and it affects many countries. There are various reasons, not for the same reason everywhere. So you see here, some of these reasons are underneath with the bullets: imitation lags, capabilities, not enough. The country or the region is not ready. A direct competition with incumbents. So there are already people in the space you want to move in, and competing with them is difficult. A chapter of the book actually focused on non-technological factors, and it used the example of Korea. There non-technological factors that affect these chances for the transition. The idea that just to be open to technologies is not enough, but you are open and also build your capabilities. is much better, right? And finally, Professor Lee sort of had a very interesting chapter on leapfrogging, where he talks about this windows of opportunities, right? Developing countries leapfrogging, jumping ahead of others, right? So the second key finding is that the capabilities do not exist independent of the system. So one needs to look at the more general system. Thus, I will later, if you want, I will discuss about ecosystems, regional ecosystems. So here is also the example that I will discuss with shipbuilding in Brazil. One sort of, you see the same country, one example with a lot of money and a lot of capabilities that did not really succeed very much. I mean, it did some things, but did not succeed very much. And another which is exactly different, and another example of the same country that succeeded very much, right? Brazil is one of the leaders, of course, of in mining across the board, right? They have one of the top 3 companies in the world, Vale, which is a great example of development, technological development over time. Interaction between actors, how well the different actors in the system interact is a major factor here. And you see here another chapter that came late in the book was stressing that the general socio-political system matters very much. So just looking at technologies and industries, we should not be independent of the general political system, economic and political system. A third key finding when it comes to economies, place-based economies, a regional economy, right, is that this economy will develop not necessarily independent of the others, but one needs to look at the interaction. And this is where we are publishing actually a special issue in a journal now exactly on this topic, the interaction between the global players and the regional economies. Right, global players are, of course, multinational enterprise (MNEs), as the UN is calling them, and here there is a number of good chapters and very interesting ideas in the book, like in, out, in, the idea of in, out, in global value chains. In other words, countries starting from a low level of development go in for the sweat stage. They take business from these value chains that require effort and concentration of resources, right? And then out, somewhat they retreat while they are building their internal capabilities, and back in again when they are more ready for the next stage. I don't know, it sounds too difficult, but it's an intriguing idea. And several people are pushing this, that you go in, you learn, you sort of wait a little bit until you prepare for the next stage, right? And you go in the next stage in a different way. And that was the examples of East Asia are all like that. Okay, and finally, the windows of opportunity. As we say, there are windows of opportunity that open up, and some countries will manage to capitalize on those, and many others will not. We live right now in a major window of opportunity. Right now, the pandemic and the geopolitical situation between China and the United States have created actually some changes with massively shifting investments, right? We all understand that investment is moving out of China, for example, and is reorienting around the world, trying to accommodate this idea of resilience. So both the United States and Europe are pushing for this idea of relative autonomy, and thus they want to sort of help those international global value chains to be more resilient and more accommodative to their own economies, right? And that may create opportunities, huge opportunities actually, for some countries that can place into this reorganization, but not for everybody. You need to be a little bit ready for that. Anyway, and finally, sort of new ways to think about policy and policy orientation. Here, several chapters actually pushed for this idea of green growth for the very simple reason that the way we know how to develop until now is a dirty way. And unfortunately, because more than half of the globe is developing at the same time, simultaneously, right? A big part of the human population is developing at the same time. That dirty way of development becomes increasingly infeasible. So another window of opportunity that is opening up is this to create a new way of growth that is more sustainable, more sensitive to the environment. This is a very interesting idea, actually, and I think it's my own personal opinion is the best chance for other countries to overcome the United States. The United States does not know how to continue in a clean way, right? It follows the old traditional way of, and that's it. I want this is the book, and creates the context. It gives you the general ideas of what people might think about, maybe thinking about, and more specifically now for our topic, I wanted to draw attention to this. This is a picture. This is Latin America, right? It's some recent work that we've done, several papers that are published, and I can tell you where to find them if you are interested. So this is Latin America, South America actually, and this is mostly Brazil. This is Brazil here. It's a developing country, huge, very large, about 215 million people, but it can take a lot more, the country. It's up here is Amazon, nothing, right? Forest and whatever. Here is really where people live, and here, right here, is the largest high-tech corridor of Latin America and one of the largest in the world. Is the state of Sao Paulo, and this is a blow-up picture of that corridor. It goes from the port of Santos to the city of Sao Paulo, 15 million people in the city of Sao Paulo, big. The Campinas, which is the university where I am at, the University of Campinas, and moves northeast. And in this corridor, which is 350 kilometers approximately, there are several cities, as you see, with different ecosystems. So we have studied this, and we wanted actually to see whether there are factors that are absolutely necessary for everybody to have. As in mathematics, we would call them necessary conditions. And there are other factors that may be different across the different systems, and those would be the sufficient factors that, together with the necessary, will make a successful system, right? So we have studied this intensively, and if I may put this, here is one of these papers that have come out with these results. Just for you, you don't need to read any detail here. I will point out to what it is. It's like these are the different variables that we are looking at the municipal level, right? And the big dots here are the three factors that are really very important across all systems. You see, we could differentiate between different paths of ecosystems, and I wanted to point out actually which those factors that are common across. One, in every of these locations, there is at least one research-oriented campus, university campus. So research universities, what it says here, research universities, absolutely important, right? So there must be at least one base for strong scientific and connection to industry technological research, right? So that's one factor. The second factor is right here. All the successful locations have local markets for knowledge-intensive jobs. So, in other words, in all of these markets, there is sort of well-educated labor, right? Well-educated labor. We are talking now about knowledge-intensive ecosystems, okay? Not just any ecosystem, but the ecosystems that are based on science and on high tech. And the third, as you see here, the third variable, it says credit. It is access to finance. Finance that is relevant to these companies, to the entrepreneurial small companies, right? The dependent variable, so that you know, the dependent variable on this is a new knowledge-intensive companies in the region. So regions are supposed to be successful in this definition if they have many of them. Right? They have created a lot of knowledge-intensive companies that are located in this municipality, and we are trying. We let the data. This methodology actually is a methodology where the computer you put the data in the computer, and then with a specific methodology, right? The computer sort of tells you what are the important. These factors were not chosen by us. We threw the data in, the data of these variables that you see here on the left. And then we use this methodology to let the computer tell us what is important and what is not important, what is more important, what is less important, right? So you see some factors are less important for some paths, development paths. These three are absolutely important for everybody, and some others are less important here and there, right? Now remember, these are all municipalities in this one big corridor. We think that if this methodology is applied elsewhere, we have actually applied elsewhere, the differences will be starker, right? So I will give you one more example, and I will close it so that we can discuss. So university, industry, collaboration is key, right? You see it right here. Is absolutely key. Having a research-oriented university in a campus, in the location you are looking at, is absolutely key to support a knowledge-based ecosystem. I repeat, knowledge-based ecosystem, not every ecosystem, right? But if you want a knowledge-based ecosystem, such a thing is absolutely necessary. A local market, people who are educated and they are ready actually to work in knowledge-intensive companies, absolutely important, and access to credit. and credit, if possible, specific for such ecosystems, right? So you see underneath here the different cities in this corridor. All of the cities belong to this corridor. The different cities whose ecosystems are closer to this or to that, right? The different paths that we wish. And finally, sorry, no, this was a mistake. Finally, I want to show just this. This is chapter 7 of the book, and I strongly recommend that you read it, actually. And chapter 7 of the book shows the case of a major window of opportunity, at least perceived window of opportunity for that particular country. Right? What was the window of opportunity there, if I may? The window of opportunity you can see right here. So Brazil, in that region that I was describing, this is Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, right? In this, out here in the sea, Brazil, about 2 to 3 decades ago, discovered a huge deposit of oil, right? The second largest deposit of oil since World War II. With the only problem was that it is very deep. It is 2 kilometers of water and 2 kilometers of salt and rock. And it was very hard to take out, right? So you needed major technological developments in order to take out this resource. But Brazil thought that this was like the space age for the United States. This was the opportunity for them to develop, not only to extract the oil, having foreign companies, for example, to try to extract the oil, but have their own companies that will produce the ships, will produce the platforms, and you will deal with the logistics. Even they were thinking about security issues around those oil fields, right? To make the story short, the money that they put into this endeavor was humongous. Huge international loans they took into many billions of dollars. They took against the oil deposit, and they handed it to Petrobras, which is a very good company, actually, very significant company, oil company of Brazil, technologically advanced, to handle the system. So what did Petrobras need to do? It needed to create competitions, to do let me see, to do shipyards. Brazil had some history of shipbuilding, but not much by the early this century. Shipyards, platforms, all of this. The result, if you read the chapters, you will see that the result in the end, they did not succeed very much, although the oil is being produced. They were obliged at some point actually to bring in foreigners big time and give consensus to others, because they reached bottlenecks. And this is very important in the context of this book, right? Of what we are discussing here. They needed to develop this so fast under pressure, political pressures from the previous Lula administration, right? That they faced bottlenecks all over the place, from the most simple bottlenecks. Where are the technicians? You know, we need so many technicians and we have so few. To more complicated programs. Where are the managers that will sort of manage a complicated production sites? And where are the interfaces that will sort of interface between the implementation, those who implement, and those who evaluate on top and make the political system work in your favor, right? In the end, they could not really handle it very well, and a lot of money was wasted. In fact, some of the money that was wasted, you have seen it in those Brazil went into mid-teens, into huge problems, right? Political problems, briberies, people went to jails. Lula went to jail, the ex-prime president, governments fell, you know, a lot of things. Part of that was this project. Because there was a lot of money, a lot of bottlenecks, and people trying to actually work it out. They diverted funds in ways that were not completely appropriate. Anyway, I will stop talking here, and I will welcome actually discussion from you all. Let me see if I can, Anders, if I can stop sharing here. Did I succeed?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much, Professor Vonortas. I would now like to invite everyone to raise their hands, and we'll take your questions and comments. And perhaps while you're thinking about that, a couple of things strike me. One is that the importance of embracing failure and learning. So I think one of the things that happened in the Brazil case was, well, there were many factors, but one was that there was a very huge emphasis not only on a specific sector, but on a specific way of going about it, which created certain entrenched interests and which politicized the project, and which led to a relatively unproductive role of government intervention and support in this area. And this happens quite a bit, and it's inevitable to a certain extent, especially with innovation, because we can't predict innovation or how to use technology. Maybe you can speak just for 1 minute while we wait for people to raise their hands about transition countries in our region, which you also know very well. And as you also know, a couple of features stand out, including relatively high levels of educational attainment, including in mint areas, and still a critical mass of public research, much of which is actually applied research. But there's still very little dynamic in terms of linkages, such as entrepreneurship based on research outputs, and linkages between the needs of the private sector or foreign investors and universities. So maybe you could speak briefly about why that is difficult.
So, Anders, I come, as you understand, I have a heavy accent. I come from a country in Southeast Europe. And in that country, they are also thinking. They are not at the forefront of technology. They have some good players, and they are thinking of how to reach there. Right? It's basically a middle-income country. One of the phenomena that has appeared is strong academic institutions. For example, the core polytechnic school, the engineering school, is extremely successful in winning projects at the European community level, extremely successful. But if you see its contribution into the local entrepreneurial environment is almost zero. Almost. I mean, not exactly, but almost. So this disconnect, the disconnect of the science with the regional economy is a major issue. I've seen this several times, and yes, I was just telling you the existence of such a campus is a must for knowledge-intensive systems. You can also have those phenomena where a very good scientific institution just cannot talk, cannot not find ways to interact well with the local ecosystem. So one critical policy policy thing, I mean, policy decision makers have to do is to actually create these dialogues between the science and the entrepreneurs. There are many ways that they have been tried out. Many different instruments have been tried out. But what succeeds and what does not succeed is not yet well understood, in the sense there is no single recipe. It's very much cultural and very much how to say, it depends on the dynamics of the region, right? If you see, for example, in China right now, there is the political regime is really imposing on this. They are developing these huge clusters in the different in the southeast region, a mega cluster actually, including a number of these very well-known cities that has become really totally politicized, and I don't know to what extent it will succeed. Right? Anyway, so this is a critical factor. How you can not only having, but how the universities will talk to industry, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I have also interviewed a lot of companies, right? I interviewed a lot because of that university I was talking about in that country in Europe. I went and interviewed companies, and you know what one company told me? She told me, okay, suppose that I hire Professor X, and I ask this professor to build me a machine, and suppose that he or she builds the best machine in the world. I mean, excellent, fantastic, and we are all happy. What will happen if something goes wrong with the machine, if it breaks down? Am I going to be able to call Professor X to come and fix it? No. So I go to the UK on the other side of the continent, and I take whatever machine is available. That's a very interesting thing. Okay, I'm open to discussion.
Yes, so let's open the floor for questions. I think we have Bunyut has had his hand up for quite a bit. Please go ahead. Okay, is Bunyut not there? Okay, I see Sevak. Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Sevak Ovanesyan from Armenia. I'm partner at the company. We worked with UNECE on the innovation report for Armenia. I have a question. Armenia is a small, landlocked country with limited resources. And all examples you brought and highlighted in the book are from larger countries. So are there any different recipes for countries which are small with the scale? Or just let me put my question in another way. Does the size matter for leapfrogging, for advancing in technology and innovation?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Sevak. This is a great question, actually. Obviously, countries like Armenia, in order to start developing serious industries, they need immediately to think abroad. The internal market does not support serious size industries. But countries like Armenia, since you mentioned, have a great advantage, and this is your expatriates. You have huge communities of Armenians spread around the world, and not only around the world, but spread, and they are sitting in some of the most important parts of the world. I know this community fairly well. They sit in California, They sit on the eastern side of the United States. They sit in Latin America. They sit in Africa. In Africa, there is and a lot in the regions there, in your region. So the expatriate communities, Sevak, for you should be something that you capitalize on. This is a good pathway to foreign economies. And you know, they are not interested. They are not interested in a lot of money. Don't think that they don't want to make a lot of money out of you. They want Armenians in Armenia to sort of recognize that they exist and ask for their assistance. I would strongly recommend that Armenia takes advantage of this community. Many other countries took advantage. All the East Asian countries went this way. All of them, those who developed. And India, more recently, also went this way. Just check out, I was saying to Anders before, how many people from India are leading their CEOs of very important American companies, of those companies that you know. Having people like that, and Armenians are very close actually, having people like that to make the connections is half of everything. On your side now, the problem with these expatriate communities is that they think that the whole country is not serious really. It's not serious in working out to develop. It doesn't have a long-term plan. It doesn't have commitment. So if you manage to persuade them that indeed you are interested and indeed you are here for the long term, I think it will happen. So this is it. This is what Armenia should do. You have also big important community in Russia, but Russia these days is a little bit difficult. I mean, because of what is going on. But the Armenian community in Russia is also very, very, very strong and very important. But yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There is Anders, you are muted.
Hey, and of course, thank you. And of course, the Armenian diaspora is one of the largest in the world and also tends to be highly educated. And if you look at some of the success stories, some of the unexpected ones in the region and beyond, it's very often driven by the diaspora because they can bring this.
France. I forgot France. There's a huge diaspora Armenian in France, right? A huge community in France, big one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have Bunyut. Or are you online now? Please go ahead.
Don't hear. He is
Bunyut,
muted.
I don't know if you're muted or.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Now, yes.
Super. Thank you very much. Thank you for a wonderful presentation and insights. I have two questions for Professor. Professor, what do you think? How, for instance, Uzbekistan can boost or foster innovations inside the business? So R&D in business. What kind of measures you can advise?
Yeah. Well, I will, Punyot, thank you for the question. I may not understand very well. You are from Uzbek. Which country? Azerbaijan. Which country?
Uzbekistan, Central Asian country.
Yeah, Uzbekistan. Yeah. I would like to go on the other. I will answer your question, but I think the first question is what should a country like Uzbekistan do, or any country that wants to develop? My approach to this is to see what you have been doing all along and how you can diversify out of that. Right? It's like the idea in Europe of what I'm saying here is smart specialization, they say it. And the idea is that a country has certain capabilities, right, that have been developed historically, and thus to jump way ahead is not so practical when your resources are not enough. So the better way would be to diversify out of the activities that you already have, right? This is a very good indicator of where to put your limited resources. This is one way to choose. Right?
And Professor Vonortas, I would just mention here that Uzbekistan actually produces automotives, which is of course a very skills intensive and intense value chain. So that might in that particular country be one of the starting points.
Yes. Several years ago, I was in Korea. I remember there was and I don't know if you remember that in Korea at some point they had this university professor and his team who was claiming that he was cloning everything, right? He was doing this, he was doing that, and the Koreans were completely obsessed by this situation. And wow, we will be great in biotech. And so I was there. And in a conference, and then as usual they collected the foreigners in the last roundtable. What can Korea do? That was the question. What can Korea do? And I mentioned several things. I mentioned materials, actually new materials for but I said nothing about bio. And they got very upset. They were. I started asking me, why don't you know that we have this person who is doing so well? And so and I said, yeah, but who is gonna use this? Okay, he may be doing well. Who is gonna use this? Do you have agriculture? No. Do you have pharmaceuticals? Not really anything to talk about. So who the hell is gonna use this? Is this useful money going that direction? No. It so happened that a few months later, this scandal blew up, right? Somebody, a whistleblower, came, and he was totally discredited. And they could not believe. They came to Washington. What did you know and you didn't tell us? Well, I did not know anything, but it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So to answer this question, that what makes sense is what is on the ground right now and how out of this ecosystem you can diversify actually in ways that will give you new products, new processes, new everything, new industries. This is the way to go. And if you think this way, there are methodologies actually. I know my colleague Ron Boschma, actually he's in Utrecht here in the Netherlands. He advises the European commissioners on this thing, and there are methodologies out there that we are using to actually advise exactly on this, what to do next. And what are the kinds of issues that if we develop the kinds of topics, if we develop, the chances are higher that the rest of the country will benefit. And that's the way. If you're a country with limited resources, you cannot throw resources to do what the Americans are doing or what the Germans are doing or what the Chinese are doing. I mean, that's useless, you know?
Yes. So so I'm talking how government can motivate research and development in business. So what kind of tools we can use? And your proposal, if I'm correctly understood, you are saying we should pick the some key areas, and what we should, government should give the money to them, or how to motivate businesses to put money to R&D, research and development.
There are
How
various tools. Yeah, there are various policy tools that you can use. One is the classic, let the companies decide where to put their investment, I mean, their research funds, right? This is the R&D tax credit. The R&D tax credit says the government does not know what is useful for the company. We give you the incentive to add to your research budget, and you know better where to spend it. That's one demand-oriented measure. The supply-oriented measure is subsidies, because you understand that the companies have a short term, usually. They will do research, but short-term research. So as a government, you have a bigger vision, right? So you want also to direct resources towards that area, your vision. So there you subsidize. You say, here is a competition for proposals, for research in that area. And the kinds of things that the European Union is doing, right? The European Union, and then of course there is the need. No company will be interested in raising research if they don't think they can actually benefit from that research. I mean, why would they invest, make the effort, right? Then there is the need for policy tools in which actually they can implement. Then it becomes a matter of connecting them with the international value chains. That's another tool. It's not a research-oriented tool, but it is a way of attracting their attention. Now they can make use of that. You understand? So there are various approaches. The government doesn't know everything, so you need to give them incentives to do what they think is useful. Tax breaks. The companies will not do necessarily all the research that you would like to do, so subsidies. And the companies, anyone who is interested in this game must actually have a return. So you need to look at the markets, how you can help them make money out of this research. And then it's a different kind of thing. It's not just money and it's different, right? So this value chain that Anders talks about, the automotive, right, Anders? Is this? Yeah. So this is a way of making money. I mean, I say to my students are interested in policy. I tell them, guys, 3/4 of the expenditures and of the actually undertaking of research is in industry today, right? 3/4. So if you are a policy decision maker and you don't understand what companies want to do, you are a failed policy decision maker. You failed. The companies don't give a damn about new knowledge. They don't care at all, actually. They start caring only if they find a way to capitalize on this, to make money. That's what the companies are here for, to make money. Right? So think about this. The companies will do research in order to have returns. If there are no returns, nobody goes for it. So it's very simple.
I think there are just 2 points I wanted to add that applies to Uzbekistan and to others. The first is that the innovation that you see will often be unexpected. One example I like to point to is cut flowers in Kenya. 2 decades ago, no one would have thought about that. And now it's one of the major exporters in the world. And so the point should be, yes, to scan the horizon, but not to determine, not for policymakers or experts to determine what is going to make sense or not, but to try out and especially help entrepreneurs that come to you and say, we'd like to try this out, to subsidize sort of the risk and the coordination externalities, all the things that have to be in place for the business model to work. And then, but that's not even the objective. The objective is actually for that to create some kind of spillovers and dynamism, such as creating an entirely new sector of the economy. And then the other point about subsidizing research, it's not subsidizing research for just for the sake of having more research. It's it's important that it play a catalytic role. So if you look at Korea, which is the automotive investor in Uzbekistan, and if you look at research and development as a percentage of GDP, you will see that in the 60s it was 10% private sector and 90% public sector. Move on to the 90s, and it's exactly the reverse. That's the kind of effect that you want to see, and that means you need to try out different kinds of things, but not continue subsidizing companies once they have shown that the model works.
Yeah. One often, because I work also in Latin America, as I said, often one question is why East Asians developed and Latin Americans did not succeed so much as the East Asian countries to develop, although since the 50s actually in Latin America there has been significant interest in technological development. Significant. I mean, they developed schools of thought on this. Prebisch and others, many people, and the governments have paid attention. There is one factor. That seems to be starkly different. Both regions actually protected their industries early on very much. When I started going to Korea, in '92. It was the first time. You could not see even not one, I swear to God, not even one foreign car in Seoul, not even one. 2-3 major hotels may have parked Mercedes-Benz, big Mercedes, outside the door, right? Just to show to the customers. On the street, nothing. So no imports, zero. You go today to Korea, 1/3 of the cars on the street are foreign, right? They have developed now. Their companies are strong. The Korean company is very strong. The one that has consolidated is very strong. International player. They open their markets. The Latin Americans hesitated much more in opening their markets. So what happened? They protected, and finally you have the internal networks and the interests to control the market. So you go to Brazil. Brazil produces millions of cars. You look at those cars; they are much more expensive than outside the country. Nobody understands. They say, why? Why do we pay so much money? Of course you pay so much money because you are protecting the industry. They don't compete with anyone. This what Anders just said, that so the evolution of policy as a country moves from one stage to another, changing the policy and understanding how the economy evolves is critical. It's critical, really. So
yeah, thank you. We're out of time. I hope, Professor Vonortas, that you have maybe 5 or 10 minutes more, and we'll take a few more questions. I just wanted to say that we're launching a poll now, and we are very keen to have your feedback and your suggestions for future sessions. We'll take a few more questions. We have Ralph Heinrich.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Ralph.
Thank you, Anders. I'm with UNECE, and I'm actually working with Slavoj Radozovic on innovation in Ukraine at the moment, so I have a question on that. But before I start, just coming back to the discussion we just had on how companies need to be able to make money if they want to invest in research and development, and how it's important to help them create markets. One additional policy tool for that can be innovation enhancing procurement, public procurement, using part of that budget to seed markets to help countries demonstrate their innovations. And we will have another Innovation Circle podcast, live podcast next week on this particular topic. So please, if you're interested in that, tune in next week. But my question to you, Nick, if I may, is going back to the very beginning of your talk where you emphasized the role of capabilities in overcoming the middle income trap, or maybe in explaining the middle income trap. And I've had a little bit of a debate on this issue with Slavo, actually. And the question is, how do you actually implement this approach empirically? How do you measure capabilities in a non-tautological way so that you don't say a country that is stuck in the middle income trap is stuck because it doesn't have capabilities, or if it's stuck, that shows us that it doesn't have capabilities. But how do you create an sort of an independent variable on capabilities that you can then use to actually test in an empirical way the impact of capabilities on the transition from middle income to closer to the frontier?
Very good. You're asking a very difficult question, of course. Nobody really knows. I know what Slavo is thinking. Slavo is a big proponent of this, and the answer, I guess, in my mind, is that you progressively develop those capabilities. Let me give one example that I lived through. The region where I live now for the last 3 decades or so, in Washington, around Washington. If you came 40 years ago to Washington, you will see that it was a very nice city, green, with a big government, a lot of international organizations, and people who served that environment, and not much else, actually. It was a pleasant place with generally older people, population, quiet and working for government and the services around the government. It has changed dramatically now, dramatically. Washington is completely different now. Still there is the government, still there are the international organizations, but really the action is on the north with a biotech cluster, big biotech cluster in Maryland, and in the south with a big information technology cluster. Right outside Washington. Those regions, and particularly Northern Virginia, was being prepared for a long time and was waiting for the window of opportunity. You know, it had, the universities existed and they were working, and the window of opportunity came, you know, with whom? With the downfall of the Soviet Union. A lot of the people, the industry that existed in the region was primarily lobbying the government to get big contracts for defense, you know, defense contracts. Then the Soviet Union went away, and many of those people got fired, but they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave. They had connections. They didn't want to leave the region. They were educated. They were ready. This is, the 2 clusters came right after. So that's a window of opportunity, right? So you cannot have a region, in order to take advantage of such windows of opportunities, need to prepare as much as possible its population. For me, education is number 1. If you don't have educated people, forget the rest. And some, at least, reasonable infrastructure, physical infrastructure. And then a macroeconomic system, you know, a government that kind of maintains some sort of stability. If the system is, you know, creating ups and downs, violent ups and downs, it doesn't work out. But some stability, and as I said, education, people who are educated, and infrastructure. I think that's where you start. And you are looking for these windows of opportunities. It could be a political event, like I said, but it could be a new technology. And Kun Lee, actually, who writes a lot about windows of opportunity. For example, he writes about the different kinds of technologies that new countries can specialize in order to have the quick returns that will support, as they develop later, the more science-oriented long-term research industries. It's a very interesting idea, actually. IT seems to have worked because it has very quick turnaround, seems to create more often the windows of opportunity for upcoming countries that then can branch out into more science-oriented long-term. Now Korea, remember I mentioned Korea some years ago. Now actually they are developing very significant capabilities in the health sector. There is a lot of investment, but even by companies that traditionally we think they are IT. Samsung, for example, Samsung is investing heavily now in health industries. These are more long-term kind of science capabilities. So Kun Lee has thought a lot about this, the catching up business.
Good.
So,
I think we're out of time, but there's one more question that maybe we can deal with quickly. Jacob, go ahead, and then we'll close.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Vonortas, for your very interesting presentation. And I think this is not a terribly complex question, and it follows up a little bit to the answer that you just gave. In your research of different innovation ecosystems and science business linkages in different types of countries, to what extent have you found that cultural factors influence the establishment and success of science business linkages? So things like attitudes towards risk taking, attitudes towards failure, hierarchical structures, these types of things.
Yeah, totally. Jakob, this is absolutely critical. Now in economics, when people actually run models to study regional ecosystems, these kinds of things, these kinds of information become important. You can imagine societies that are very conservative and very anti-change. They cannot be innovative as well, right? I mean, you cannot have innovation in a society that traditionally thinks very conservatively. Thus, people, and I tell you, there is a very famous professor at the University of Ontario now. He's American now. He's in Ontario, Mr. Richard Florida, who completely advocates on that issue. So much so that one of his favorite, listen to this, is almost funny. One of his most favorite proxies of a region that is open-minded, right, is to how much it accepts diversity, including the gay community. It's very interesting, actually, including the gay community, because the gay community traditionally has been non-conforming, has been very much into entertainment, sort of into design, into new things, into entertainment, artsy kind of things. And those, for him, those items indicate openness to innovation. So what you say is absolutely critical, absolutely critical. You can see it even within countries. Look at where I live now in the United States. It's very obvious. The two coasts are much more open-minded. They mingle a lot with foreigners. They foreign accents like mine all over the place. In the middle of the country, things are different. and thus they tend to be different also for business. Same in Brazil. Go to Sao Paulo. It's like you have a different country. There is a country, and within that country, another country. Sao Paulo is very different from the others. So the fact that it develops business is not just by accident. To give you a specific example, the agency that funds me in Sao Paulo, for 10 years, I'm not joking, for 10 years, I have a program going, a big program, lots of people, 10 years. Why they can do this when Brazil cannot, has these ups and downs? And because I found out since the beginning, the early 1960s, it was set up, the constitution of the state gives to this agency, the science agency of the state of Sao Paulo, 1% of the tax revenue. 1% of the tax revenue every year of the state tax revenue goes to this agency. And on the side, they have endowments. So in bad years where the tax revenue is low, they draw from the endowments. In good years, they replenish the endowments. In 10 years, I've been there with all these ups and downs that have happened. I have not felt a thing, nothing. Everything has moved on very, very nicely. So this indicates, you know, a different approach to this. In other Brazilian states, no. Very conservative, go to Northeast, very conservative, very traditional, very, okay. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Vonortas. It's been excellent. Just if I may offer just a very quick thought that came to mind in the US, and also as an example of innovation that we might not always think of as innovation, and that is Walmart, which it came from Arkansas in the South, and has basically revolutionized the entire retail and wholesale sector and led the way in automating it. Sometimes not always for good, but it has changed dramatically, and it came from a place where few people would expect it. So it's not only in sort of these hubs, but most innovation, yes, true, happens in large cities where you have skills and capital and a certain culture coming together. So
if I may add something, Anders, most people, when they think about development, our minds, and this is because of the literature that already exists, think about manufacturing industries. But success actually can come from services, and if your industries, I mean, if you can think about industries where you can contribute, and I give you a specific example, you should look at Panama. Panama sits where it sits. One of the pillars of development of Panama is logistics. They have chosen logistics as a very important industry, and they are doing very well over there. So services can actually create a lot of income and a lot of interesting things. Walmart is basically a service industry, but I say logistics is also something very important, right? Tourism. Other countries are developing tourism services, and they are really very, very, very successful as well. So industry is fine. I mean, manufacturing is fine. I have no problem with manufacturing, but not everybody will do manufacturing. I mean, it's the truth. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I think this has been a good experiment also from our side, and we very much look forward to your feedback. And I can only second the point about services. And in fact, the next episode that we are planning will be with Mike Munger from Duke University on the 21st of March, and my colleague Emanuela will moderate, and that will be about the platform economy and innovation in services in a rapidly digitalizing world. And after that, we will be also plan to have one with Dan Bretsnitz from University of Toronto and Innovate Canada, who's been looking at the history of innovation and how places and regions develop. So that will also be a nice complement to what Professor Vonortas has told us.
You should keep me on your mailing list, because I'm very much interested in this. And with Dan, we are good professional friends. Actually, he's very good. He's very strong.
Definitely.
All right.
Definitely. We look forward to it. And I'd also like to remind people that we also have bi-weekly podcasts coming out on many related topics, also with Professor Bretsnitz and Munger, also with Nobel laureate Edmund Phelps, and Joel Mukir and many others about these issues, about what innovation is like, the history of innovation, and how countries in transition develop. So we look forward to getting your feedback on that too, and we've sent the link to Dan's presentation, to Professor Vonortas' presentation and the book, and to the episodes. And if you permit, we will also keep you on the mailing list for upcoming episodes of this discussion series.
I would love
so
it.
I thank you very much for everyone for participating, and especially, of course, for Professor Vonortas. It's been an honor to have you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.